This video contains sensitive material, including descriptions of fraud, corpse mistreatment, and psychological trauma, which may be disturbing to some viewers. The story is fictional, intended for storytelling and educational purposes. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for those under 18 or sensitive to these topics. We are not responsible for any discomfort caused. In the serene town of Willow Creek, Colorado, where rolling hills cradle quiet homes, a sinister secret festered beneath the facade of Sacred Rest Funeral Home. Michael Thornton, a man entrusted with honoring the departed, orchestrated a betrayal so vile it shook the nation. For years, grieving families handed over their loved ones, believing they were laid to rest with dignity. Instead, 190 bodies were hidden in a decaying warehouse, stacked like forgotten relics. While urns filled with concrete dust were passed off as sacred ashes, the Thorntons lived lavishly, driving Teslas, sipping champagne on yachts, funded by stolen grief and federal relief funds. In 2023, a putrid stench led the FBI to uncover this house of horrors, exposing a web of lies that shattered trust. Families clutched urns, now symbols of deceit, as the truth emerged. Their loved ones were never cremated, never honored, only exploited. This is not just a story of crime, but a chilling reminder of how greed can desecrate the sacred, leaving scars that may never heal. Willow Creek's nightmare unveils a truth we cannot ignore. In Willow Creek, Colorado, a town of 8,000 nestled among pine-draped hills, Sacred Rest Funeral Home stood as a pillar of solace. Its owner, Michael Thornton, 48, was a charismatic figure, known for his warm smile and promises of eco-friendly farewells. Families trusted him to honor their loved ones with dignity, believing his services ensured peaceful rest. But on January 15, 2025, a federal courtroom in Denver revealed a far darker truth. Thornton was sentenced to 20 years in prison for orchestrating a fraud so grotesque it defied comprehension. He had concealed 190 bodies, never cremated or buried, in a rotting warehouse, while deceiving families with urns of fake ashes. The scandal, uncovered in October 2023, sent shockwaves through Willow Creek and beyond, exposing a betrayal that tarnished the sanctity of death. Thornton's operation began innocently enough. In 2015, he opened Sacred Rest, marketing it as a sustainable alternative to traditional funeral homes. His brochures boasted of green cremations and compassionate care, appealing to environmentally conscious families. By 2018, however, financial troubles loomed. Thornton, unwilling to scale back his lavish lifestyle, devised a sinister scheme. Instead of cremating bodies, he stored them in a leased warehouse on the outskirts of town, hidden behind a rusted gate. Families received urns filled with concrete dust, believing they held their loved ones' remains. The deception spanned 5 years, affecting 190 families, each paying thousands for services never rendered. The courtroom was packed as Judge Evelyn Harper delivered the sentence. Families wept, clutching photographs of the deceased, while Thornton, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, stared blankly ahead. Prosecutors detailed how he exploited grief, charging $2,500 to $5,000 per cremation, amassing over $1.2 million from victims. The FBI's investigation, triggered by complaints of a foul odor, uncovered a warehouse filled with bodies in various stages of decay, some wrapped in plastic, others exposed to the elements. The scene was described as a nightmare beyond imagination by lead investigator Sarah Mitchell. Thornton's wife, Laura, 45, was also implicated, accused of aiding in the fraud. While Michael faced immediate sentencing, Laura's trial was scheduled for October 2025, leaving the town in suspense. The scandal destroyed Sacred Rest's reputation, once a trusted institution. Local pastor James Ellison, who had recommended the funeral home to parishioners, expressed profound guilt, stating, "I trusted Michael. We all did. This betrayal cuts deeper than words can express." Willow Creek, a tight-knit community, grappled with collective shame as residents questioned how such horror went unnoticed. The case drew national attention, with media outlets labeling Thornton the Undertaker of Deceit. Legal experts noted the unprecedented scale of the fraud, comparing it to rare cases of mortuary misconduct. The courtroom testimony revealed Thornton's callous disregard, as he referred to bodies as inventory in private texts. Families, unaware of the truth, had scattered fake ashes in cherished locations, lakes, mountains, family gardens, only to learn their rituals were meaningless. The emotional toll was immeasurable, with many victims, like Ethan Caldwell, seeking therapy to cope with the violation. As Thornton was led away in handcuffs, the weight of his actions settled over Willow Creek. The scandal was not just a crime but a desecration of trust, leaving a community to rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. The story of Sacred Rest Funeral Home would linger, a cautionary tale of greed and the fragility of faith in those we entrust with our most sacred moments. Michael Thornton's Sacred Rest Funeral Home promised solace, but its operations hid a grotesque deception. Families, seeking closure, paid for cremations and burials, trusting Thornton to honor their loved ones. Instead, he orchestrated a chilling fraud, concealing 190 bodies while delivering urns filled with concrete dust. This betrayal, spanning 2018 to 2023, exploited grief with calculated precision. Unraveling when the FBI exposed the truth in Willow Creek, Colorado, Thornton's scheme was deceptively simple. When families entrusted him with their deceased, he provided contracts detailing eco-friendly cremations or burials, charging $2,500 to $5,000 per service. Rather than fulfilling these promises, he transported bodies to a derelict warehouse on Willow Creek's outskirts, leased under a shell company to avoid suspicion. There, bodies were stacked in plastic bins, some wrapped in tarp, others left to decompose in humid, unventilated conditions. Thornton purchased bulk concrete mix from a local hardware store, grinding it into a fine powder to mimic cremated ashes. These counterfeit urns were handed to families, accompanied by forged certificates of cremation, ensuring the deception went unquestioned. The operation required meticulous planning. Thornton trained staff to maintain the facade, instructing them to deflect questions about delays with excuses like equipment maintenance. His wife, Laura, managed client interactions, offering tearful condolences while knowing the truth. The couple's home, a sprawling estate in Willow Creek's upscale district, contrasted sharply with the warehouse's horror. Families, unaware, praised Sacred Rest's compassionate service, leaving glowing online reviews. Thornton leveraged this trust, expanding his client base across Colorado, targeting vulnerable families through targeted ads on social media. The deception might have continued indefinitely, but cracks emerged in 2022. A grieving widow, Amelia Ruiz, noticed her husband's urn felt unusually heavy. She contacted Sacred Rest, but Thornton dismissed her concerns, claiming variations in ash composition. Ruiz's suspicions lingered, shared in a local grief support group, where others reported similar doubts. These whispers reached Willow Creek Sheriff's Department, but without evidence, no action was taken. Thornton, sensing scrutiny, doubled down, instructing Laura to monitor client complaints and delete negative reviews. He even staged a community open house at Sacred Rest, showcasing gleaming urns and a faux crematory to dispel doubts. The fraud scale was staggering. By 2023, 190 bodies filled the warehouse, some dating back to 2018. Thornton kept meticulous records, labeling each body with a code to track payments, but never intended to process them. The warehouse, lacking refrigeration, became a breeding ground for decay, with temperatures soaring in summer. Employees, paid to remain silent, later testified to the unbearable stench, describing Thornton's indifference as he inspected the inventory. One worker, anonymously tipping the FBI, admitted, "I couldn't sleep knowing what we were doing." Families suffered profound betrayal. Ethan Caldwell, whose mother died in 2021, scattered her supposed ashes in Rocky Mountain National Park, a place she loved. Learning they were concrete dust left him shattered, questioning every moment of closure. Others, like Ruiz, felt violated, their sacred rituals rendered meaningless. The deception's emotional toll rivaled its financial impact, with victims losing not only money but trust in the rituals that define farewell. Thornton's actions turned Sacred Rest into a monument of deceit, its promises as hollow as the urns it distributed. As the FBI closed in, the truth would unravel, exposing a horror that would haunt Willow Creek for generations. While Michael Thornton hid bodies in a decaying warehouse, he and his wife, Laura, orchestrated a financial scheme that fueled their opulent lifestyle. Sacred Rest Funeral Home became a front for misappropriating $950,000 in federal relief funds, intended for small businesses during the 2020 pandemic. Instead of supporting their struggling funeral home, the Thorntons diverted these funds to indulge in extravagance, leaving Willow Creek's families to bear the cost of their greed. The scheme began in April 2020 when Thornton applied for Paycheck Protection Program (PPP) loans, claiming Sacred Rest needed funds to retain staff and cover operational costs. He submitted falsified payroll records, inflating employee numbers and expenses. The Small Business Administration, overwhelmed by applications, approved 2 loans totaling $950,000. Rather than investing in the business, Thornton funneled the money into personal accounts. Bank records later revealed a trail of lavish purchases: a $90,000 Tesla Model X, a $120,000 yacht docked in Denver, and $200,000 in cryptocurrency investments. Laura, an avid art collector, spent $150,000 on private auctions, acquiring works by contemporary artists to adorn their Willow Creek estate. The couple's lifestyle stood in stark contrast to their client's grief. While families paid thousands for non-existent cremations, the Thorntons dined at Michelin-starred restaurants, vacationed in the Caribbean, and hosted lavish parties. Neighbors, unaware of the fraud, envied their apparent success, with Michael boasting of smart investments at community events. Laura, active in Willow Creek's charity scene, donated small sums to local causes, cultivating an image of generosity. Behind closed doors, the couple laughed off their deception, with Michael joking in texts about turning dust into dollars. These messages, later seized by the FBI, painted a chilling picture of their callousness. The financial misconduct extended beyond federal funds. Thornton overcharged clients, billing for premium services like memorial scattering that never occurred. He fabricated invoices for non-existent crematory upgrades, pocketing the difference. By 2022, Sacred Rest revenue exceeded $2 million, with 60% derived from fraudulent charges. Laura managed the books, using accounting software to conceal discrepancies. When a client, Amelia Ruiz, questioned a $3,000 surcharge, Laura dismissed it as a clerical error, refunding a fraction to avoid suspicion. The couple's greed knew no bounds, as they exploited grieving families to fund their excesses. The FBI's investigation, launched in 2023, unraveled the financial web. Forensic accountants traced the PPP funds to offshore accounts, uncovering a network of shell companies Thornton used to launder money. The couple's assets, including their yacht and art collection, were seized, valued at $1.1 million. Prosecutors argued the financial fraud was as egregious as the corpse abuse, as it preyed on public resources during a national crisis. Judge Evelyn Harper, reviewing the evidence, described the Thorntons' actions as a calculated assault on trust and decency. Victims like Ethan Caldwell felt doubly betrayed, learning their payments funded Thornton's luxury. Community outrage grew as details emerged, with residents picketing the Thorntons' home, demanding accountability. The financial misconduct not only bankrolled their deceit but amplified the scandal's impact, exposing a couple who thrived on others' suffering. As the trial loomed, Willow Creek grappled with the realization that Sacred Rest prosperity was built on a foundation of stolen funds and shattered lives, a legacy of greed that would linger long after the Thorntons faced justice. In October 2023, a rancid odor wafted through Willow Creek, Colorado, emanating from a nondescript warehouse on the town's industrial edge. Residents, accustomed to the scent of pine, complained to the sheriff's department, suspecting a sewage issue. What began as a routine investigation spiraled into a national scandal, as the FBI uncovered the gruesome truth behind Sacred Rest Funeral Home. Michael Thornton's house of lies collapsed, revealing 190 bodies in horrific decay, a discovery that shattered the community's trust. The warehouse, leased under a shell company, was a fortress of secrecy, surrounded by a chain-link fence. Its windows boarded, it drew little attention until the stench became unbearable. On October 5th, Sheriff Daniel Hayes responded to complaints, noting a putrid, unnatural smell. Suspecting illegal activity, he contacted the FBI, who obtained a search warrant. On October 7th, agents breached the facility, unprepared for the horror within. Bodies, some dating to 2018, were stacked in plastic bins, others sprawled on concrete floors. Decay had set in, with some remains skeletal, others liquefying in the humid, 85-degree interior. Hazmat teams were summoned, and the scene was sealed off, described by Agent Sarah Mitchell as a vision of hell. The discovery confirmed Thornton's deception. The warehouse, meant for storage of funeral supplies, had become a mass grave. Labels on bins, coated with client names, linked each body to sacred rest records. Some remains, wrapped in plastic, bore traces of embalming fluid, indicating Thornton's initial attempts to preserve them before abandoning care. The oldest bodies, from 2018, were barely recognizable, their decay accelerated by the warehouse's conditions. The FBI cataloged 190 victims, cross-referencing with client contracts, revealing the scale of the fraud. Willow Creek reeled as news broke. Families, notified by authorities, gathered at the town hall, clutching urns now known to contain concrete dust. Ethan Caldwell, whose mother's body was among the remains, collapsed in tears, unable to process the violation. Amelia Ruiz, another victim, described the warehouse in court. It wasn't a resting place. It was a dumping ground. Media swarmed, broadcasting images of the cordoned-off site. As national outlets labeled it America's worst funeral scandal. Social media erupted, with hashtags like #SacredRestHorror trending globally. Thornton, arrested at his estate, offered no resistance. Laura, questioned separately, claimed ignorance, though evidence suggested otherwise. The FBI seized Sacred Rest's computers, uncovering emails detailing the warehouse's use. One message, sent by Thornton to an employee, read, "Keep the doors locked. No one checks." The investigation revealed Thornton's attempts to mask the odor with industrial fans. A futile effort as decay overwhelmed the facility. Employees, coerced into silence, provided statements, one admitting, "We knew it was wrong, but Michael paid us to stay quiet." The discovery's aftermath was profound. Willow Creek's economy, tied to tourism, suffered as visitors avoided the town of horrors. Schools offered counseling, as children overheard parents' anguished discussions. The warehouse, deemed a biohazard, was demolished, but its shadow lingered. For victims, the physical horror paled against the emotional betrayal. As sacred farewells were reduced to lies, the FBI's findings, presented in court, set the stage for Thornton's reckoning, as Willow Creek confronted a wound that would take decades to heal. The exposure of Sacred Rest Funeral Home's horrors was devastating, but the discovery of Michael Thornton's private communications deepened Willow Creek's wounds. Leaked text messages, revealed during the 2024 trial, showed Thornton plotting to conceal 190 bodies, mocking grieving families, and reveling in his deception. These revelations, broadcast across Colorado, transformed communal grief into outrage, exposing a betrayal that cut deeper than the physical desecration of remains. The messages, extracted from Thornton's seized phone, painted a chilling portrait. In a 2021 exchange with Laura, he wrote, "Another urn out, another dollar in. They'll never check." Another text, sent to an employee, instructed, "Pile them higher. Space is tight." Most damning was a 2022 message to a friend, joking, "Grief pays better than Wall Street." These words, read aloud in court, stunned the gallery. Families, already reeling from the warehouse discovery, felt violated anew, realizing Thornton viewed their pain as a punchline. Ethan Caldwell, testifying, said, "He laughed at our tears, turned our loss into his game." The leaks, published by the Denver Post, sparked a firestorm. Willow Creek, a community priding itself on trust, had embraced Thornton as a neighbor. He coached youth soccer, attended church, and sponsored local festivals. Laura, a school board member, was lauded for her empathy. The messages shattered this facade, revealing a couple who exploited their roles. Pastor James Ellison, who had officiated funerals at Sacred Rest, wept publicly, apologizing for unknowingly endorsing Thornton. "I preached peace while he hid horrors," he said, resigning his post. The community's trust eroded further as details emerged. Thornton had bribed a county inspector to avoid warehouse checks, ensuring his secret remained hidden. He manipulated clients with charm, offering discounts to grieving widows while plotting their deception. The messages also revealed Laura's complicity, as she coordinated fake urn deliveries and silenced skeptical employees. One text from her read, "Tell them the ashes are delayed. They'll cry and move on." This callousness galvanized residents, who felt complicit for trusting the Thorntons' polished image. Public reaction was swift. Vigils turned into protests, with hundreds marching to sacred rest, now shuttered. Signs read, "No rest for liars and honor our dead." Social media amplified the outrage, with former clients sharing stories of Thornton's manipulation. Amelia Ruiz, whose husband's body was hidden, organized a support group, drawing 50 families to share their grief. "He stole our closure, then mocked us," she told reporters. The scandal fractured Willow Creek's social fabric. As neighbors questioned who else might have known, the leaks also exposed Thornton's contingency plans. A 2023 message outlined relocating bodies to a second warehouse if suspicions arose, a plan thwarted by the FBI raid. This revelation fueled fears of an even larger cover-up, prompting calls for a state inquiry into funeral regulations. Community leaders, including Mayor Clara Hensley, demanded accountability, vowing to restore trust. "Willow Creek trusted Thornton, and he spit on our values," she declared. The betrayal's impact lingered. Families boycotted local businesses linked to Thornton, and tourism plummeted. The leaked messages, a window into his cruelty, ensured his infamy. As Willow Creek grappled with its violated trust, the Thorntons' words became a rallying cry for justice, uniting a wounded community against the couple who turned their sacred rituals into a cruel jest. The unraveling of Michael Thornton's fraud at Sacred Rest Funeral Home culminated in a landmark legal reckoning. On January 15, 2025, in a Denver federal courtroom, Thornton pleaded guilty to wire fraud and 191 counts of corpse abuse, receiving a 20-year sentence. His wife, Laura, charged as a co-conspirator, awaited trial in October 2025, leaving Willow Creek, Colorado, bracing for further revelations. The legal proceedings exposed the depth of their crimes, cementing the case as a cautionary tale of unchecked greed. Thornton's guilty plea followed months of investigation, triggered by the 2023 FBI raid. Prosecutors presented a damning case. Thornton defrauded 190 families, charging for services never rendered, and misappropriated $950,000 in federal funds. The corpse abuse charges, each tied to a hidden body, underscored the scandal's horror. Lead prosecutor David Engwin argued, "Thornton turned death into a business of deceit, desecrating lives and trust." Evidence included client contracts, forged cremation certificates, and the leaked texts revealing his callousness. Thornton, facing overwhelming proof, accepted a plea deal to avoid a trial that could have extended his sentence. Laura's role complicated the case. Charged with identical counts, she maintained her innocence, claiming Michael coerced her. However, emails and texts showed her managing fake urn deliveries and silencing employees. Her trial, delayed by legal maneuvers, loomed as a second chapter in the saga. Willow Creek residents, attending Thornton's sentencing, expressed mixed emotions, relief at his punishment, but anxiety over Laura's fate. "She was as guilty as him," said victim Amelia Ruiz, reflecting community sentiment. The courtroom was a crucible of grief. Families delivered impact statements, detailing their trauma. Ethan Caldwell, whose mother's body was hidden, spoke of sleepless nights and shattered faith. "You stole her dignity and our peace," he told Thornton, who avoided eye contact. Judge Evelyn Harper, presiding, described the case as unprecedented in its cruelty, noting the psychological toll on victims. The 20-year sentence, the maximum for wire fraud, reflected the charge's severity, though some families felt it insufficient. Harper also ordered $1.2 million in restitution, a symbolic gesture given Thornton seized assets. Legal experts hailed the case's significance. The 191 corpse abuse charges set a Colorado record, prompting discussions on mortuary oversight. The wire fraud conviction, tied to interstate client payments, elevated the case to federal jurisdiction. Thornton's defense, led by attorney Mark Sullivan, argued he acted under financial pressure, but Harper dismissed this, citing his lavish spending. "You chose greed over humanity," she declared, ensuring the sentence sent a message to the funeral industry. Willow Creek watched closely, with court proceedings live-streamed at the town hall. The guilty plea offered closure, but Laura's pending trial sustained tension. Residents feared her acquittal could reopen wounds, while others demanded systemic reform to prevent similar crimes. The case exposed regulatory gaps, as Colorado's funeral oversight relied on infrequent inspections. Advocacy groups, inspired by victims, pushed for stricter licensing laws, citing Thornton's ability to operate unchecked for years. Thornton's incarceration marked a turning point, but the legal saga was unfinished. Laura's trial promised new revelations, potentially implicating others. For Willow Creek, the courtroom was both a battleground and a mirror, reflecting a community's trust betrayed and its resolve to seek justice. The Thorntons' legal consequences, while severe, were only the beginning of a long journey toward healing. On January 15, 2025, Judge Evelyn Harper delivered a searing verdict in Denver's federal courthouse, sentencing Michael Thornton to 20 years for his crimes at Sacred Rest Funeral Home. Her response, a blend of legal precision and moral outrage, underscored the betrayal of 190 families in Willow Creek, Colorado. Harper's ruling, condemning Thornton's monstrous disregard for human dignity, resonated as a clarion call for justice, shaping the scandal's legacy. Harper, a veteran jurist known for her measured demeanor, faced an unprecedented case. Thornton's guilty plea to wire fraud and 191 counts of corpse abuse demanded a sentence reflecting the crime's gravity. The courtroom, packed with victims, media, and Willow Creek residents, hung on her words. Harper began by recounting the evidence: Thornton's concealment of 190 bodies, his delivery of fake ashes, and his theft of $950,000 in federal funds. She cited the leaked texts, where he mocked grieving families, as evidence of his depravity. "You exploited the sacred trust of those in mourning," she declared, her voice steady but firm. The judicial response was rooted in victim impact. Harper invited families to speak, amplifying their pain. Ethan Caldwell described his mother's hidden remains, saying, "I buried concrete, not her love." Amelia Ruiz, trembling, recounted nightmares of her husband's desecration. Harper, visibly moved, emphasized the psychological toll, noting that Thornton's actions robbed families of closure, replacing it with trauma. She referenced expert testimony, which likened the betrayal to a violation of cultural and spiritual sanctity. Compounding the legal offenses, Harper's sentencing rationale balanced statutory limits with moral weight. The wire fraud charge carried a 20-year maximum, which she imposed, citing Thornton's calculated deceit across state lines. The corpse abuse counts, while numerous, merged into concurrent sentences under federal guidelines. She rejected defense pleas for leniency, dismissing Thornton's claim of financial desperation. "Your Tesla, your yacht, your art collection betray your motives," she said, referencing his lavish spending. Harper ordered $1.2 million in restitution, acknowledging its inadequacy for the emotional harm inflicted. The judge's words extended beyond Thornton. She criticized Colorado's lax funeral regulations, urging lawmakers to act. "This tragedy was preventable with oversight," she stated, aligning with advocacy groups pushing for reform. Her ruling aimed to deter similar crimes, signaling to the funeral industry that exploitation would face severe consequences. Legal analysts praised her approach, noting its balance of punishment and systemic critique. Harper spoke for the victims and the future, said law professor Rachel Klein. Willow Creek residents, watching via live stream, felt validated. Harper's condemnation of Thornton as a predator cloaked in compassion echoed their anger. Her acknowledgement of the community's trust, shattered by a local icon, fostered hope for healing. Yet, she cautioned that justice for Laura Thornton, whose trial loomed, was pending. "The full truth requires accountability for all," Harper noted, foreshadowing further scrutiny. Harper's response transcended the courtroom. By live streaming the sentencing, she ensured transparency, allowing victims to witness justice. Her final remarks addressed the families. "No sentence can restore what was stolen, but your resilience honors your loved ones." This message, broadcast nationwide, galvanized reform efforts. For Willow Creek, Harper's judicial response was a lifeline, affirming their pain while demanding accountability. As Thornton was led away, her words lingered, a testament to justice's power to confront even the darkest betrayals. The revelation of Michael Thornton's fraud at Sacred Rest Funeral Home left Willow Creek's family shattered, their grief compounded by betrayal. The 190 victims, whose loved ones' bodies were hidden, faced profound trauma, grappling with guilt, nightmares, and a loss of closure. For individuals like Ethan Caldwell, The scandal transformed sacred farewells into enduring wounds, reshaping lives in its devastating wake. Ethan Caldwell, 32, was among the hardest hit. His mother, Margaret, died in 2021 from cancer. Trusting sacred rest, Ethan paid $3,500 for her cremation, scattering her supposed ashes in Rocky Mountain National Park, her favorite place. In October 2023, the FBI revealed her body was among the 190 in the warehouse, never cremated. The urn contained concrete dust. Ethan's world collapsed. "I thought I honored her," he testified, voice breaking. "Now I see her in nightmares, abandoned in that place." Plagued by guilt, he sought therapy, unable to reconcile his ritual's falsehood. His relationships strained as anger and grief consumed him. A common thread among victims. Amelia Ruiz, 45, faced similar torment. Her husband, Carlos, died in 2020. She received his ashes from Thornton, placing them on her mantle, whispering to him daily. Learning his body was hidden, decaying for years, triggered panic attacks. "I spoke to concrete, not Carlos," she said in court. Amelia joined a support group, finding solace in shared pain. But her faith in rituals was shattered. She described sleepless nights, haunted by images of the warehouse, a trauma echoed by dozens of families. The psychological toll was widespread. A 2024 study by Denver University, commissioned post-scandal, found 80% of affected families reported symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, including flashbacks and depression. Children, overhearing parents' anguish, developed anxiety, with Willow Creek schools offering counseling. Community gatherings, once joyous, became somber as families mourned anew. The betrayal eroded trust, with many avoiding local funeral homes, opting for out-of-town services despite higher costs. Victims also faced practical challenges. Some, like Ethan, sought to recover their loved ones' remains. But decomposition rendered many unidentifiable. DNA testing, funded by the state, offered partial closure, but the process was slow, prolonging pain. Others, like Amelia, refused to reclaim urns, viewing them as symbols of deceit. Financial losses, averaging $3,000 per family, added strain, with Thornton's restitution unlikely to materialize soon. Support groups, led by victims, became lifelines, fostering solidarity but underscoring the scandal's scale. The emotional impact rippled beyond immediate victims. Friends, neighbors, and clergy who recommended sacred rest grappled with guilt. Pastor James Ellison, who referred families to Thornton, said, "I failed them, trusting a liar." Community events, like memorial services, saw low attendance as residents feared revisiting their grief. The scandal's publicity, amplified by media, brought unwanted attention, with tourists gawking at the warehouse site, deepening local shame. For Willow Creek, the victim impact was a collective wound. Families, united in grief, began advocating for reform, channeling pain into purpose. Ethan and Amelia joined rallies, demanding stricter funeral oversight. Their resilience, born of suffering, inspired others, but the scars remained. The loss of closure, replaced by images of decay, haunted their days. Thornton's betrayal stole more than money, it stole peace, leaving victims to rebuild from fragments of trust and memory. The exposure of sacred rest funeral homes' atrocities ignited a firestorm of outrage in Willow Creek, Colorado, and beyond. Michael Thornton's concealment of 190 bodies and theft of $950,000 in funds, coupled with his lavish lifestyle, fueled nationwide condemnation. The funeral home's demolition amid protests marked a symbolic end. But the scandal's fallout reshaped the community and spurred calls for funeral industry reform. Public anger erupted in October 2023 as news of the warehouse horror spread. Hundreds gathered outside sacred rest, now shuttered, chanting, "Justice for the betrayed." Signs demanded accountability, with one reading, "Thornton's wealth, our pain." Protests escalated, targeting the Thornton's estate, where vandals spray-painted "grave robbers" on their gate. Social media amplified the fury, with hashtag Sacred Rest Scandal trending, as former clients shared stories of Thornton's charm masking deceit. National outlets, from CNN to the New York Times, covered the story, labeling it a betrayal of trust unprecedented in scope. The Thornton's extravagance, funded by victims' payments in stolen federal funds, intensified outrage. Images of their Tesla, yacht, and art collection, seized by the FBI, contrasted starkly with families' grief. Ethan Caldwell, a vocal victim, told reporters, "They partied while our loved ones rotted." Amelia Ruiz, leading a protest, burned a replica urn, symbolizing her stolen closure. Willow Creek's residents, once proud of their town's charm, felt tarnished as tourists dubbed it the corpse town, crippling local businesses. The funeral home's demolition in March 2024 was a cathartic moment. Crowds watched as bulldozers razed the building, cheering as its sign, promising dignified farewells, crumbled. Mayor Clara Hensley, addressing the crowd, vowed, "We'll rebuild our name, not Thornton's lies." The site was cleared for a memorial park funded by community donations to honor the 190 victims. Yet, the act couldn't erase the economic fallout. Hotels and restaurants, reliant on tourism, reported a 40% revenue drop as visitors avoided Willow Creek's stigma. Nationwide, the scandal sparked scrutiny of the funeral industry. Advocacy groups, inspired by victims, lobbied for federal oversight, citing Colorado's lax regulations. A 2024 Senate hearing, prompted by the case, debated mandatory inspections and licensing reforms. Funeral homes across the U.S. faced audits, with several uncovering minor violations, though none matched Thornton's scale. Public trust in mortuary services plummeted, with 60% of Americans surveyed expressing skepticism, per a Gallup poll. Willow Creek became a rallying cry, as families demanded transparency to prevent future atrocities. Locally, the fallout fractured community ties. Neighbors who had praised Thornton felt betrayed, while others shunned those who worked at Sacred Rest despite their claims of coercion. Schools hosted forums to address children's fears as the scandal dominated conversations. Pastor James Ellison, stepping down, urged unity, but tensions lingered. The Thorntons, once social fixtures, became pariahs, their legacy a cautionary tale of greed. The outrage, while painful, galvanized action. Victims like Ethan and Amelia joined national campaigns, speaking at rallies to honor the deceased. Their efforts, covered by media, pressured lawmakers. With Colorado passing a 2025 law mandating biannual funeral home inspections, Willow Creek's wounds remained raw, but the public's fury transformed grief into resolve, ensuring Thornton's crimes would not fade quietly. The fallout, both local and national, redefined trust, demanding accountability for those entrusted with life's final rites. In the wake of Sacred Rest Funeral Home's betrayal, Willow Creek, Colorado, embarked on a painful but resolute journey to heal. The scandal, which left 190 families grieving anew, spurred the community to establish a memorial and advocate for reform, reclaiming dignity for the deceased. Through collective action, victims like Ethan Caldwell and Amelia Ruiz transformed their pain into purpose, forging a path toward recovery. The cornerstone of healing was a memorial park, built on the demolished funeral home site. Dedicated in June 2025, the park featured a granite monument engraved with the names of the 190 victims. Surrounded by wildflowers and benches for reflection, funded by $500,000 in community donations, it became a sanctuary for families. Ethan, who lost his mother, visited weekly, finding solace in the quiet. "This honors her, not Thornton's lies," he said. Amelia, mourning her husband, helped design the monument, ensuring it reflected the community's resilience. The dedication ceremony, attended by 1,000 residents, featured prayers and music, a stark contrast to the protests of 2023. Community-led initiatives bolstered recovery. Support groups, organized by victims, met monthly, drawing 60 families to share stories and cope with trauma. Therapists, volunteering through a local clinic, offered free sessions, addressing the PTSD affecting many. Schools integrated grief education, helping children process the scandal's impact. Mayor Clara Hensley launched a Rebuild Willow Creek campaign, promoting local businesses to counter the tourism slump. By mid-2025, visitor numbers rose 20%, signaling economic recovery, though the town's stigma lingered. Advocacy became a powerful outlet. Ethan and Amelia joined the Colorado Dignity Alliance, a group formed post-scandal to push for funeral industry reform. Their testimony before the state legislature helped pass the 2025 Funeral Oversight Act, mandating biannual inspections and stricter licensing. Nationally, they spoke at conferences, amplifying victims' voices. Amelia's speech at a Washington, D.C. rally, broadcast on CNN, urged, "Don't let our pain be forgotten." Their efforts inspired similar laws in 5 states, ensuring Thornton's crimes catalyzed systemic change. Willow Creek residents, once ashamed, took pride in their advocacy, with banners reading, "From betrayal to justice." Spiritual healing also played a role. Pastor James Ellison, despite resigning, organized interfaith vigils, uniting Christians, Jews, and others to honor the deceased. These gatherings, held at the Memorial Park, fostered unity, healing divides caused by the scandal. Families, like Ethan's, held private rememorials, scattering verified ashes in meaningful places, reclaiming rituals Thornton stole. Amelia reburied her husband's remains in a Denver cemetery, finding closure after years of anguish. Challenges persisted. Some families, unable to identify remains, faced ongoing grief, while others struggled financially from Thornton's fraud. The pending trial of Laura Thornton, set for October 2025, stirred anxiety, with fears her acquittal could reopen wounds. Yet, Willow Creek's resolve grew. A community art project, painting murals of hope on downtown walls, symbolized renewal. Schools hosted essay contests, encouraging youth to reflect on trust, ensuring the scandal's lessons endured. The path to healing was neither swift nor complete, but Willow Creek's efforts restored dignity. The Memorial Park, advocacy, and communal support transformed a legacy of betrayal into one of resilience. Families, united by loss, honored their loved ones by demanding accountability, ensuring such horrors would not recur. Their journey, born of pain, became a testament to the power of collective healing. The tragedy of Sacred Rest Funeral Home imparts a profound lesson. Trust is sacred, but blind faith invites betrayal. Michael Thornton's exploitation of Willow Creek's grieving families reveals how greed can corrupt even the most hallowed rituals. The 190 hidden bodies, fake ashes, and stolen funds underscore the fragility of trust in those entrusted with our deepest vulnerabilities. Yet, the community's resilience, building a memorial, advocating for reform, and healing together, demonstrates that accountability and vigilance can restore dignity. This story warns us to question those we empower, especially in moments of grief, when manipulation thrives. Trust must be earned through transparency, not assumed through charm or reputation. Willow Creek's pain teaches that oversight, whether personal or systemic, protects our most cherished values from those who would exploit them. This lesson demands action. Research funeral homes before entrusting loved ones, verifying licenses and reviews through state boards. Demand transparency. Ask for cremation documentation and facility tours. Support legislation for stricter oversight, like Colorado's 2025 Funeral Oversight Act, by contacting lawmakers or joining advocacy groups such as the Colorado Dignity Alliance. Share Willow Creek's story to raise awareness, ensuring no family endures such betrayal. Honor the deceased by safeguarding their final journey with diligence and care. Act now to protect the sanctity of farewell.